Hi there, welcome and thank you for joining us here today. Today we have a special guest, Valtteri Harmainen, who's the CEO of Metosin. And you might remember him from his talk a few years back in ClojuTRE about how he created his first Clojure job himself. Today we'll be discussing how he ended up in tech in the first place, what steps took him all the way to Metosin, and how he ended up taking the position as the CEO. And we'll also talk about what he has learned from leadership in the past year being the CEO of the company and what's there coming from Metosin in the future. And this will be pretty Metosin-centric episode, and it's not meant as an advertisement, even though it might sound like it towards the end, but just bear with us. Right before recording this episode, we had a full day of sales workshops where we were talking about all this stuff, so that kind of influenced the topics of today as well. But nevertheless, I hope you enjoy the conversation. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Why not? I'm Valtteri Harmainen, CEO of Metosin. What else?
Where are you from?
I'm from Äänekoski, Finland originally, and currently I live in Laukaa, Finland, which is 30 kilometers from Äänekoski, so I haven't gotten really far physically in my life.
I don't know where Äänekoski is.
Yeah, so it's a small industrial town in central Finland. You probably know Jyväskylä, which is the closest real city near Äänekoski. And when I was a kid, we used to go to see the movies in Jyväskylä because they had a movie theater.
Highlights of the youth.
Yes, exactly. But Äänekoski is one of those cities that it's very easy to just drive by it and without noticing that you you passed a city.
How was it growing up there?
Maybe as a small kid it was really good because it's not too big and not too small either. There's like 20,000 people living there. But when I got to my teen years, it started to feel not so inspiring, maybe, and a bit too small, perhaps.
Like a small village.
Like a small village, yeah.
I can relate to that, even though I'm from here. But on a global scale, always pretty small place as well.
Yeah.
So you are working at Metosin, right, as a CEO, right?
Yeah.
I think it might be interesting to go through the steps how you ended up in this role, starting from your speech at ClojuTRE a few years ago. How does that sound?
Sounds interesting.
Would you like to give a quick summary of the talk that you gave?
In 2019, I wanted to challenge myself. I had never given a public speech in a technology conference, and I had a speech about my personal story. Those usually are the most interesting ones in the conferences. Even I enjoy also the tech talks, but somehow the personal stories are usually the ones.
It's easier to relate to people than technology.
Yes, but if the title of my talk was how I created my own Clojure job, which sounds like a bad movie title, but that's pretty much how it was. So it was my personal story, that how I created the circumstances for myself to learn how to do Clojure professionally.
And this was near Jyväskylä, right?
Yeah. So it happened in Jyväskylä. Yeah, I was living there.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Cool.
Yeah. I worked in Jyväskylä, or I had graduated from the university in 2014 and worked as a consultant, IT consultant, mainly in e-commerce domain.
Was there any Clojure at Jyväskylä at that time, or were you the first one?
I think there was, but I wasn't. There was no community or anything like that. I heard rumors of some senior people doing that magical stuff, but I never interacted or met the people. The way how I actually learned that such a thing as Clojure exists was that when I was working in the e-commerce consultancy company, we had it was a relatively large company on Finnish standards, at least a few hundred employees and such, and we had a HR department, and they organized that kind of trainings for the staff. So there was some kind of an external party providing trainings for the staff, and there was a long list of different kind of trainings, and the HR asked that if is someone interested in participating in one of these, and one of the items on the long list was it was something called functional Clojure, a functional programming language on top of the JVM or something like that, and I thought that sounds really interesting, because I had dabbled with, or I had found the functional paradigm through JavaScript, and especially through the books JavaScript, the good parts, and functional JavaScript. I don't remember.
Was that the Crockfield, or what was his name?
I don't remember. I think, was it actually that Focus was the one of the either of those? But sorry, I'm bad with the author names. But but anyway, so I had earlier in my career I had written a lot of Java, and the more professional the Java development went, the more stupid I felt myself, because it felt like it's too difficult for me. That I studied all the enterprise patterns and Java EE and that stuff, and I felt really stupid that hey, this is too hard for me. But then I found the functional programming through JavaScript, that hey, you can actually pass these functions around and have the things like referential transparency and that kind of stuff really clicked for me, and because it was how my it was better for how my brain is wired. It felt simpler, and I could understand what's going on, and and so on. And okay, so then there was the course that you could do this on top of JVM, and that sounded really cool. And I enrolled for the course. It was some person named Tommy, I think, who was supposed to be the instructor for the course. But then it turned out that in whole Jyväskylä, I was the only one who had enrolled for that course. So it was never, so it never happened. But I started Googling about that. Okay, what is this Clojure thing? And then I found the Richiki videos, and off we went.
What year was this?
2016 maybe, or 2015.
So it took you like 3 years to invent your job and give a talk about it at a conference.
Not really. So I started learning it for my own purposes. I did some small things with it, and it really clicked. It made sense to me. And I think it was around 2000, the end of 2016 or 2017, when there was this opportunity at the University of Jyväskylä where I had started actually my career and accidentally became a programmer. So
can you elaborate on that? You accidentally became a programmer. What were you supposed to be before that?
That's a good question. Maybe
we can get back to it after the Clojure tour to take a tangent.
No, I like that there are these layers are coming here, and maybe we find our way back to the original.
I'm taking notes, so you can go there right now.
Excellent. So what I was supposed to be, well, I didn't really know, but when I was after high school, or whatever lukio is in
high school,
yeah, it's high school. So I think I was very deeply interested in philosophy and history, and that kind of subjects. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be in, but somehow I ended up in the University of Jyväskylä as a student to study information systems science, because it was easy to get in, because I had good papers from the high school, so I needed something like to type my name correctly on the.
And you managed to do that perfectly.
I managed to do that, yeah. So I got in there, and I really, at that point, I didn't know that what I wanted to do. So I just took all the courses that sounded interesting to me. There, the curriculum was very flexible, and you could study whatever you wanted in the university. So I took philosophy classes, and also I really got into cognitive science. That was super interesting. And
so you went to study information systems. You took classes in philosophy and cognitive sciences.
Yeah.
And where did that take you before you stumbled upon programming later?
Well, through the cognitive science, because it was part of the same faculty.
Faculty.
So there were some courses on usability and the human-machine interaction and that kind of stuff. And at some point, I really thought that, hey, this usability and this kind of things are really interesting, and I for some time I thought that this is maybe the thing that I could do for a living, at least for a while. And there. My roommate at the time, I think I was a second year student or something like that. That he mentioned that there's a position for a student who knows something about usability in some university project and so on. And I said, no, I don't really know anything about the subject. But my roommate, that he was very persistent that hey, you should really apply for this. Well, then I applied for that because he was so pushy, and I went to the interview, and it turned out that I was the only person who applied for the jobs, and I got the job. So
sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, sometimes that's enough, and I ended up studying the usability of an information system that had been developed in the University of Jyväskylä, and my job was to study it and improve it. Okay, so I started doing that and noticed that so the main usability defect with this system is that it does not work. And
what was the intended purpose?
The intended purpose was to store information about sports facilities in Finland. So there was a database that they had been collecting since the late 70s or something like that for study purposes, and also for the government, so that they know that, okay, what kind of facilities they have here.
Does this connect to your speech that you gave in ClojuTRE?
Yes, we are getting there. Slowly, but not so steadily.
That's good. We are heading towards the correct direction.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for steering, Captain. So I ended up noticing that the system doesn't work, and then the project manager was like, okay, what do we do now? Okay, the system doesn't work, so it doesn't make sense for me to try to put some kind of paste on top of it and
like try to fake it to work.
Yes, exactly. And then there was a software vendor. We tried to talk with them that could you please fix this, but they didn't really fix the issues. They just billed 1,000 euros for every call we made them, and something like that. And there were some contractual issues and all that usual gunk, which I didn't know too much at the time, but from
later on.
Yeah, from later on. But anyway, it somehow ended up that the project manager just decided that, Valtteri, you are studying information system science. You will make a better program for us. Okay, I didn't know how to program. I had taken one programming course in the university. Well, I had been into computers since I was a kid, but I had never been programming, or I had done some personal websites and that kind of stuff, but not really knowing much about programming.
But you had seen a computer. You knew about them.
Yes, I knew that what kind of a machine it basically is, or not that deeply, but anyways, I knew my way around computers and such. I had been running my own Linux server when I was a teenager, so
okay.
I knew something about them. But the project manager decided that you will, Valtteri, make a better one for us. I told her that I didn't really know how to. I can try to learn and do it, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Good enough. Let's continue.
Enough. Yeah. Then, well, luckily I had some friends who had done something more concrete with programming than going the 101 course in the university, and they helped me to get started and choose some technologies. Well, yeah, in hindsight they were bad decisions mostly, but anyways, they helped me to go forward. And for some time there was also, we were able to hire another junior developer there. He was there for 6 months, I think, but we kind of together somehow made it work. And eventually, after maybe one and a half years, we had a functioning system, which was better than the previous system because it didn't work. And yeah, and it was launched in 2013 or something like that. And because I was the one who had mostly built it, then it's quite natural that I became the person who also maintains it.
And you still maintain that to this day, right?
Yeah. So basically, in 2017, when I wanted to learn Clojure, it was kind of an end of life for the previous system that I had made as a student, and I had the chance to also, we got some funding to integrate some more functionalities into it, and I decided to rewrite it in Clojure and do it the right way because I had the industry experience and I knew better how it should be done.
So you stumbled upon programming because a friend told you to apply for a job that you didn't really want in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then there's somebody said to you that, Valtteri, you will write a better system. Yeah. You wrote the system, and a few years later you rewrote the system in Clojure. Yeah. And you still maintain it till today.
Yeah. There is a small twist in that story that the same roommate who told me to apply for the job, 1 year from that, so this was around 2012 or something like that, and that he thought that Valtteri, we have been making these web pages for all kinds of things, and they had been paying us cash like under the table and so on, that we could also try to do this officially, that we could spin up a small company and try to be practice that what is it like to be an entrepreneur. And my roommate, that he happened to so he had done accounting, so he knew his way around the financials and those numbers, and he said that he will take care of all the paperwork and you can, Valtteri, concentrate on the programming and that kind of or web pages or whatever we were doing at that time. When I had complete or made the system work and it was launched, and I wanted to move on in my career because I thought that, okay, I could create an information system from scratch that I could maybe apply for doing this for a living, because the university didn't pay too well for a trainee, and I had learned through my friends that if you are a capable programmer, you can earn way more money by doing that for a living on the commercial side, and I thought that, well, I could give that a try, and so I applied for a job in the e-commerce company where I later on worked, and
this was around what year?
2014, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we fast forward from here till 2017, where you started learning Clojure by rewriting the system that they had made you write in the first place without knowing how to write code, how did that work out for you?
Well, that's what my talk in 2019 was all about. So
if you just summarize that in 2 sentences here, and people can go to YouTube and check out the talk from there if they want to know more.
So, well, it went well. It had a happy end.
Well, that's good. Do you want to still go back towards 2014 or continue from 2017 forward?
Maybe the point where I was getting to that was that I've also been a part-time entrepreneur since 2012 or 13.
So it's a while already.
Yeah, a while already.
Okay, so we can jump to 2017. You started writing Clojure by rewriting the system for the University of Jyväskylä.
Yeah.
And after you had done that, you somehow came into contact with the Metosin folk who made you give the talk, or did you approach them, or how did that happen?
Trying to remember. When I was building the system in Clojure, this is also what I mentioned in the talk, that at some point I had so much uncertainties that, okay, is this going the right direction, and so on. Like, people often, when they're learning, they have all kinds of uncertainties, and I hired a consultant from Metosin, Jarppe, to come and take a look at what I was doing, and Jarppe came there and said, "You're doing fine," well, and and so on. So that and also around that time, Metosin, they had asked me to apply for them a few times. It happened about once a year when they learned that I was doing Clojure. I think the first time was in 2016. That was it Tommy who approached me and asked that, hey, would you be interested working with us? And but it was always bad timing when I had just switched job or started something new and so on. But
regularly they came to you and asked, like, would you be available?
Very randomly.
Okay.
And always at the wrong time.
But eventually that happened when the time was right.
Yeah. So after the talk and after rewriting the system in Clojure, I went to First Beat Technologies, and I was working there at the time of the talk. It was a product company, which I thought that after being in a consultancy, I had the feeling that the product companies, they are getting it right, and they are doing the right things, and they have a common goal and clear direction where they are going, and I had that kind of a magical feeling about product companies. And also the product development stuff started really kicking off around that time, and many books were written and so on. And I went there for a short time. I wasn't really happy there. Then there was an opportunity at Housebase, which is also a product company, and I went there for a couple of years. And there, at first bit, I was a lead developer, yeah. And at Housebase, I was hired in as a developer, but I ended up being the chief information officer for that. So it was a startup. When I joined them, I was the employee number 26, and after 2 years when I left, I think there were 120 people there. So it went through a really rapid growth during the pandemic.
So that the 100 people plus was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense speed to grow.
Yes. Some could say that it might be not so sustainable even, but yeah, those were interesting times, and my responsibilities grew, and this pattern started to emerge that someone hires me as a programmer, and I end up into some kind of leadership position.
What happened next?
After 2 years, so HowSpace, it's a SaaS product, so it was quite interesting, but then after being there for 2 years and having the rapid growth and seeing the problems there and so on, it was Tommi again who approached me, or was it Jarppe? Well, either of them approached me on Slack and made me an offer that I could not refuse, and then I joined Metosin.
You joined the same year that I did, right? I think it was like half a year later.
Maybe
2021?
22, I think.
I've been there for 3.5 years. Around that time.
Around that time, yes.
I remember I was in Panama when you first joined, and I remember watching your introduction, or when you presented yourself through Google Hangouts or the Google Meets, and I was just hanging out in the backyard with the monkeys in the trees and the parakeets singing.
Yeah, I have also vague memories of you being somewhere in the sunshine in an exotic place.
You joined Metosin as a programmer, right?
Yes.
Things started changing quite rapidly after you came in, and you started gliding towards leadership positions again.
Yeah, that happened again. So first of all, I think I took responsibility of the customership that we had and still have at that time.
So you became like account manager.
Yeah, basically. So we didn't have that kind of role back then, but I saw that there is really a need for one, and so I gently proposed the CEO that hey, should we try something like this? We could really benefit from this, and you could take things off from your plate and so on, I got really good response, and I got the chance to try it out myself.
You pioneered the role in the company that you felt like Metosin needed at the time. And the rest is history. But how did that feel? You came to the company, did you have these nice images of Metosin being more up to date on their game, like compared to the product houses? Or
well, already because I had been working in a consultancy for many years, and I had seen what kind of issues and problems there could be. And then I had been in 2 product companies and seen in both of those that what kind of problems growth brings to you. And Metosin, being a relatively small company, or I think a decent size, but around 20 people, and that's usually the number of people that when you really start needing some kind of structures that you can organically grow to a certain extent, and some companies can grow quite large even organically, but at some point you will need the structures, and I saw that from my previous experience that hey, these guys are probably hitting these problems, and I thought that I can maybe help.
And you did.
Yeah.
So you took the role, and how did that feel in that context? Were you comfortable there, or did you feel like you could make even bigger impact in the company?
Well, I compared to the previous companies where compared to the other companies where I worked that it was really easy to go to talk with the founders, and they gave me a lot of responsibility. So that was not a problem in that sense. That So that was not necessarily well. I always get certain responsibility and a role also in the other or I got some responsibilities and some. But not like at Metosin, because it was still so small. It felt like that it's easier to actually make a difference here.
So you had experience from bigger companies where making difference was more difficult, and now that you had direct access to the CEO and the founders, you saw an opportunity to start learning more about how to help a company like
and I felt that there's something that I can probably really help here, and I felt like that I can be an active active contributor towards whatever goals we might have.
What did you do next?
Well, so basically what I had done myself to create the position that where you are an account manager or something like that, I started to bring more people into that and build that structure that eventually we would like we have now, that we have an account manager in all of our customer accounts and etc. But I started gradually and systematically bringing more people into that and mentoring and teaching and leading that how to do this thing, what is the point. And
so you first tried it out yourself, and then you brought other people and started mentoring and kind of creating this layer of account managers who can take responsibilities off from the CEO.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
How does it feel now to see where you've come since then, first starting that? We have 5 account managers or something in the meetings nowadays.
Yeah. That's something I'm pretty proud of, actually, because I somehow personally I feel excitement, and I feel really good about 2 things. One is that you're fixing some actual problem, or not necessarily fixing, but at least improving the circumstances where you are. And secondly, or I don't know in which order they go, but like enabling other people, and because there's also the career path and learning about taking responsibility and doing other useful things except for the technical things in a consulting work. Which is super important to actually achieve something.
Yeah, you need to take into account the people, not just the technology, and everything that connects the people and the technology.
Yeah. So what I learned over the years was that the technical problems, that they are the easy ones, because they are usually solvable by just you learn something and then implement something and so on. But the hard problems are the people problems, and because you cannot do everything yourself, and that's the point why you're working in a company, that you have a group of people, and as a group you can achieve more than any individual can achieve. But then the problem is that how do you actually make the group of people function, because people are all different, and each group of people they are different, and it's a very complex as a problem, and you need to approach it quite differently from let's say technical challenges.
Yes, indeed. Let's go back in time 2 years. So you had just started this group of account managers, and you started mentoring people, including me. I was one of your first victims to take on to that kind of responsibilities.
Yeah.
How has that changed your view on leadership in general when you started mentoring more people towards the roles that you first designed yourself and later on started leading the company as well? Like, has that changed your approach into how you see leadership and the value of mentoring in the same kind of context.
Yeah. So I think that, well, if I start from a few steps back, that my view on leadership has changed quite drastically throughout my career. That first of all, that I've learned the hard way that what leadership, like leading humans, leading people, what that actually is, and what is the point, why should that be done, and learning the hard way that's actually where the bottleneck usually is.
Yeah, people are not as easy as writing code because people don't really work that way.
People don't really work that way, and yes, I think Joel from us, he wrote a really good blog post about that stuff. That you use first decade of your career learning how to control things, and you become better at controlling. But people don't work that way. That you cannot just control them. That they have their own motivations and characteristics and so on. Or you can to some extent guide them, but people that they eventually make their own decisions and so on. So you don't have any direct control on them, or if you do, that you are probably an evil person.
So your perspective has been changing throughout your career, and when you started building your account manager group, you noticed you kept on going down the same line that people cannot be controlled, you can only guide people, and you've been building that at Metosin ever since.
Yeah.
And I draw a blank. I will need to edit this.
No worries.
No worries, indeed. So 2 years ago, you started the group of account manager, you brought people in, and you started seeing the change in the company itself, in the structure. How did that feel? You kind of started it all, something started to happen.
Yeah, so, well, at that point in time, it didn't, because there was always something urgent or something that had to be done and so on. So that's why it's super important to stop and reflect every once in a while and think that where did we start from, where have we come from, where are we going to, and that kind of stuff. So it's a really good question. But right now, I feel again quite proud because I had been in leadership positions even before, and but not with this kind of responsibility and authority to do the things the way I wanted to. But I guess it has been going pretty well. So I'm feeling it's like proud, but in a more humble way.
Humbled by it.
Yes.
So let me draw a little timeline here. So around 2 years ago, you started mentoring people for these roles, and around a year ago, you became the CEO.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It wasn't planned in a thorough way, or I think that the previous CEO, one of our founders, Mikko, he had asked me, but by that time I was in practice being already something that you would call an operational leader or something like that, maybe some C something, but Chief Operational Officer, COO. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, you need to have a fancy title.
Of course.
Yeah, but in practice, I was already doing I had many responsibilities in the company, and Mikko at some point, I think he asked that would you be interested in the position of the CEO, and because he had been doing that for 12 years and so on. So I don't remember it myself, but Mikko reminded me that my first answer was fuck no. But then we have our whole leadership went through leadership training and sparring with professional help at some point, and we still do. I think it's very smart to also develop your leadership system constantly, especially if you want to want to have more control. Well, you cannot have real control, but some at least feel of control that where is your company going to. So it's very important to develop those skills also actively. So we are doing collaboration with the leadership consultancy, and they're our coach or trainer that she.
You can also call them by name if you want to. It's okay.
Yeah, its company is called Sitomo. Really good service. I warmly recommend. This was an unintended plug. Yeah, but happy to say.
Nice people. I've also met them.
Yeah.
Happy to shout out.
Yeah, indeed. But Sanna from Sitomo, who is our coach, that she said that she sees the characteristics of a CEO in me, and then that got me thinking that, well, why not? We could give it a try.
So if I pause here for a moment, after a leadership coach told you that you have the leadership quality for a CEO in you, then you were comfortable saying yes. But before that, you were like, no, not me.
Yeah, maybe I thought that it's too big of a responsibility, or that I should have some experience. But how do you get that experience if not doing it? But
I don't think that MBA would be enough for that. So it's just by doing, I guess.
Yeah, or there are many paths to becoming a CEO of a smallish company. But quite often it happens by accident, or at least in my case, partially. But but anyway, that I got the confidence from her that I could do it, and I could probably be at least okay at that.
How was your first year as a CEO?
Yeah, so it was tough. Yeah, so it's not an easy job. Actually, it's the hardest job that I've had so far. So you're responsible of pretty much everything in the company. It's like in our case that it's that we can pay salaries to all our 20 employees and such. So it is not just my career or my life that we are talking about, but other people's lives and people who I care about because they are my friends and colleagues and such. And still, you should make like rational business decisions and think always forward. That how do we develop this company so that we are super successful in the future, as well as somehow making the present work, but always keeping eye on the future and making. And of course, because we have a small company, so I know all the employees that we have, and I have been also a supervisor of everyone. So I had the individual one-on-ones with them and talked about their ambitions and career paths. So it was very tangible that okay, I hear all these individual voices, and I need to somehow gather it into something and make the right decisions considering the whole group, and also where the founders and the major owners and the staff and they all want us to go. And there is no like single good answer to any of those questions.
Everything is a compromise.
Everything is a compromise, and no matter what kind of decision you make, someone will get upset of that. Yeah, and that's actually quite exciting for me, because there are no like It's not like Boolean logic that it's either false or true, but everything is somewhere in the middle.
And the people management skills come handy here as well.
Indeed, and what kind of tricks, or not tricks, but learning that how people actually work, and also accepting that that people are not that simple, that you just decide something and then things happen that way, but it's either that you make those gentle nudges here and there. And
if you had to pick one of your qualities or values for leadership, what would that be?
Value for quality or value for leadership? I would pick maybe honesty or transparency.
I was kind of hoping that it would be transparency, because then I would have been correct.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I've seen from the sides, that your style is really toward, like, there's no prettifying anything. You just say how things are, and then we discuss about it.
Yeah, and to me, I think that what kind of leadership I would like to experience, that I would like to get the information as it is, or in some kind of graspable form, and not like telling that everything is okay when everything is shit, or the other way around. So and because of our industry and because of our company and our profile, that we have very smart people working at Metosin. So even if you tried to hide the truth somewhere or put it under the rug or or anything like that, the smart people will sense it and burn you very, very quickly while doing that. So I don't see any point in that, and it feels dishonest to me to not be transparent.
While we're talking about Metosin and Metosin leadership, would you like to tell the audience where Metosin is going now? What is the vision that you have for the future?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that that we have always been very strong in technology, and especially in Clojure, and that has been the sweet spot maybe for us. But I've been discussing a lot with our founders and about on what premises did they found the company initially in 2012, and they felt that the industry was doing something wrong, and by just having enough experience, enough skill, sharp tools, that you can actually achieve more by doing less if you concentrate on the right things, and that's what I think that is the core DNA of Metosin, and I think Clojure fits technologically there quite perfectly. And I personally feel that I'm most productive when I'm using that, and so on. So the value proposition of Clojure, it fits really nicely with Metosin.
So Clojure is not going anywhere.
Well, I don't see it going anywhere unless someone comes up with something better. But if we get to choose, then I think that's the sharpest tool there is for fixing those problems that most of the companies do have. But then about the problems that companies do have, it's that they, like, we are usually hired to solve some kind of technical thing or build some kind of a technical thing, and always when we go to a project, then quite soon we realize that, hey, their actual problem is in their organization or in their people or in their processes or their ways of working, and so on. So it's very rare that the technical issues are the major source of problems in an organization. So we are now, or at least for the past 1.5 years, we have been consciously trying to become better at also that consulting part, so that we know how to do the software. That's always been the strong part, but also that how can we help the organizations to work better or achieve their goals more efficiently.
And this involves getting people more comfortable with the business side of things and with the people side of things, and becoming better communicators and manage people better, even though we're not managing anybody, but how to deal with different kind of personalities and team compositions and organizational structures.
Yeah, like internally we have been talking about the triangle that we have the people and business and technology in some order. That those are the three like major skills that if you can master all of those, then you are like a super consultant who can fix any issue anywhere.
And if the audience, if anybody of you have ever come to contact with a Metosin person in the past year and a half, you've probably heard of the triangle already. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, Martin even wrote a blog post about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a heuristic that we try to follow. That we try to compose our teams so that we have enough skills in people sector, in business sector, and in technology sector. So and I personally believe that that's the sweet spot to have a really resilient team that can handle pretty much any issue that the client might have.
How do you think this looks towards the customer, or what is different from a traditional software consulting team that you might get compared to a triangle team that you would get from Metosin?
So that different companies package that into different forms. That some consultancies they sell leadership consulting, and then maybe something for the middle management, and then the developers and etc. And maybe our differentiator is that what's in our core DNA, how I follow it, that we have a smaller group, a very tight group of people who work together, so that they are not in those different layers, and that we have less people and more cross functional also in those skills. So shortly, that we do enough of the same thing that those do, and more efficient.
Have you seen how this has affected in practice the daily life of Metosin, or your life in general?
Meaning that we are trying to follow the heuristic of the...
Yeah, let me rephrase. So since we started talking about this triangle, it kind of changed the focus from the technology aspect towards the holistic consulting side. Mm-hmm. So how have you noticed this affecting the day-to-day of Metosin and the inner talk or the internal chatter in Slack and in hallways? And
so I think that if you, for instance, that if you look at our Slack conversations from let's say 2 years back, that we didn't talk so much probably about customers, or that how can we develop them and that kind of thing. But I think it has affected the how we talk about the customers. For instance, one practical change is that we have a bi-weekly meeting for the whole company, and there nowadays we start by talking about our customers, so that they come first. It's we wouldn't have a business without our customers. So it just makes sense that when we have a internal company update, that we first talk how are our customers doing.
Yeah, and this is not meant as an advertiser or anything, but we just had a sales workshop today, and I have to mention that what we learned today as the first thing is that customer comes first. They might not be right all the time, but they come first.
Yes.
Because they are our bosses, basically.
Yeah. They decide that whether they want to do business with us or not. And that affects that whether we can pay salaries to our employees or have offices or do podcasts in our premises or whatnot.
Yeah, this is not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about Metosin and leadership, but is there something that I haven't really been able to ask that you might find, people might find curious to hear about all of this process? Like you turning to CEO, starting to lead a company.
Yeah, it's been well. I'm not sure if I have that kind of very valuable insight that I wouldn't have given already.
What's the weirdest thing that you've noticed during this process? It could be anything.
Could be anything. Yeah, that's a good one. Weirdest thing. Maybe.
It cannot be about platypus.
Yeah, of course. But I think that the people are the weirdest part. It never surprises me that how, even though we are all, or almost all of us are like males from Finland and who are interested in technology and a very specific niche, but even though we are quite homogeneous group, it's still very surprising that how differently we can interpret things and understand things, and that the communication, that it's always the bottleneck, and it's a challenge also within our small community, where we think that okay, we understand each other really well, but really we don't, and that how it's so weird that, and we are super smart. It's not about it, but that maybe nowadays I think that if I announce something to the whole company or communicate something to the whole company, I'm super happy if like 20% of that sticks some way. so
I think that's a good final note to end this thing.
Yeah.
It's been a long day. We just had like an 8.5 hour long workshop, and my brain was already toast before we started. So if you found this anyway incoherent, we can blame that. But we still wanted to do this today because Valtteri was in town. So
yes, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And last, final, shameless plug here. Where can we find you online?
You can find my phone number on our website, and you can try to call me. I get a lot of calls nowadays, so I probably won't answer, but but you can leave me a message.
Yeah, and you are on Clojure and Slack as well.
Yeah, I'm on Slack. Yeah, in Clojure.
Valtteri Harmainen, or what was your handle?
Is it Valtteri Harmainen is my GitHub handle, but in Clojure and Slack, I think I'm just Valtteri.
Oh, even easier. That's good.
Yeah. I usually have a picture of a panda bear as an icon in all the places. So
just be on the lookout for the panda on Slack, and you'll find Valtteri.
Yeah, it's a high chance that it will be me.
Cool. Thank you, Valtteri.
Thank you.
If you managed to watch all the way till the end, thank you. If you found this useful or interesting, please consider subscribing. See you next time. Ciao.